Good morning, everybody. Of course, it could be good afternoon. It could be good evening as well. That's why I say that every time you check out the CDO Matters podcast, because we record these and you could be consuming this content just about any time. For me, and for many of you who are attending live, it's Friday morning, end of May, and weekend coming up. And I'm not going to lie, friends. Boy, do I need it. I've been battling a crud for 2 weeks. I'm pretty sure it's probably, probably some sort of COVID. I don't know. Apparently there's some new strain. I was just talking to my producer about it. Maybe, I don't know, but it's 2 weeks. There it is, more coughing. I've been coughing for 2 weeks. My head, it feels like a football because I've been coughing so much. I know I'm not sick anymore. And I know that I'm not, for the worst of it, I was completely holed up and not going around doing anything, staying home. But I know I'm over the worst of it. And I know that I'm not, catching. Is that the right way to say it? I'm not catching. I'm not pitching. I don't know. I'm not giving it to other people. I'm probably pretty sure about that because I don't think I'm schlepping virus bugs anymore. But yeah, been a long couple of weeks. And of course, I was traveling this week. Many of you know if you've tuned into my LinkedIn feed. And by the way, hey, if you're coming to this event and you're checking it out, maybe you're checking it out on YouTube and we're not connected on LinkedIn, let's connect on LinkedIn. I share content every day related to data and analytics. I share insights. I share what I know. I'm giving away 30, yes, folks, 30 years of professional experience. I'm giving it all away. I'm telling you all the secrets from the inside. Do it on LinkedIn. I do it here on this podcast and the live event of our podcast or recorded podcasts. So if we are not connected, let's connect. And hopefully you'll get some value out of your relationship with me, out of your connection with me, out of the content that I produce, because that is my goal. My goal is to extend the tenure of CDOs and to make it easier for everybody who wants to become a CDO. Maybe that's you. And share what I know. We've got, a lot of work cut out for us in the data and analytics world, but there's a massive opportunity, friends. There is a massive opportunity with AI. We are at the precipice of some really big and exciting things. And that's what we talk about here on CDO Matters, at the live event, recorded podcast, you name it. So, hey, well, as we usually do here, we'll give a few minutes for everybody to kind of collect. The topic of today is we're going to talk a little bit about data and tariffs, but I think we should also allocate some time to talk about the recent acquisition of Informatica by Salesforce. I really want to talk about that. I had a fairly successful post this week. Others like me, analyst types, have been putting out some great content and their thoughts around that acquisition, because I think it's an important one. And not just because the fact that Informatica was an $8 billion company, it's a big company, but I think it's an important one for our space, for the data and analytics world, for the data management world, for the data governance world. I think it's an important tell, if we were to use poker terminology, about where things seem to be headed in our space. And it's a positive thing. Don't get me wrong. So I really want to talk about that as well. We will stick to the topic, of course. And of course, we will address your questions. So this Friday morning, once a month, started as an Ask Me Anything, right? Where I was sharing my insights, sharing my knowledge, and it still is. It is still an Ask Me Anything. So if you've got a question about data quality, data governance, data management, master data management, you name it, data strategy, let it rip. Let's have a conversation. Ask your questions. That's what I'm here for. And there are others that are joining this session as well who also have insights. And there are others on my LinkedIn community that have insights to share. That's what this is about. It's about sharing between the group, between the community. So, hey, Kurt. Good to see you, my friend. We were together in Los Angeles a few weeks ago. Always nice to see you. Thanks for coming out. Robert, contagious. Thank you, Robert. Yes, that is, I think, the word. I'm not contagious. But what do we say? People say we're catching. I'm not catching. I don't know. Why don't we say it? Thank you, Robert, for my English lesson. You'd be surprised. It's my first and only language. Sometimes struggle with it. Kunal from Detroit. Hello. Hello, Sam in the amazing ATX. Holy cow, I saw some photos of rain in Austin and Central Texas. Austin, San Antonio. My goodness, I hope everybody's okay. Some crazy weather in Central Texas. This is the time of year for it, though. I lived in Central Texas for 20 years. Right now, kind of end of May, early June is the time for the just bonkers weather in Texas because the heat is there, but every now and then you get these kind of crazy kind of cool fronts that hit the heat and mayhem ensues. And that happened earlier in the week in Austin. So hopefully everything's okay with you, Sam, and your family, you name it. Tatiana from Keller. Yeah, same thing in Keller, up in the Metroplex. I mean, here in Texas. But happy to have you, Tatiana from Keller. Looking for other folks. Anyway, say hi. Drop in where you're calling from. Check out LinkedIn. By the way, I've got multiple windows open, so if I'm not looking directly at you, I'm looking at multiple windows. We've got LinkedIn running over here, and I've got our studio running over here. So that's me juggling, virtual juggle. All right, let's cut to the chase. Let's talk about let's talk about data tariffs first, and then let's save the second half for the discussion about Informatica, because I think that's kind of the funner half. As everybody probably should know, since the beginning of the year, and even prior to that, leading up as part of the U.S. election and all of the hubbub around that, tariffs are a big deal. They're happening, and this is not a political discussion. I'm not here to talk about. Excuse me, that'll happen a lot today. I'm not here to talk about the political merits, the economic merits. Not my pay grade. I've got opinions, but that's not what I'm here to discuss. The reality is that we're living in a kind of a time of disruption, arguably a shifting world order, a time of shift away from globalism to more nationalism. I think we're seeing that kind of broadly, more writ large. Started with Brexit, other things going on in the world. There are things that are changing in our world that are impacting our organizations, that are impacting our companies. Tariffs is most certainly one of them. So again, I'm not here to talk about the politics of it. I care, I've got opinions, but that's not why we're here. We're here to help our organizations deal with these disruptions. And when I've seen what's been happening over the last few weeks related to tariffs, I see things that remind me very much of the global pandemic. Obviously, the root causes here are two very, very different things, but a lot of what's happening is very, very similar. So 4 or 5 years ago, when we were in the thick of the global pandemic, everything shifted very, very quickly. Buyer behaviors shifted quickly. Supply chains were impacted massively. Manufacturing plants were shut down. Ships stopped shipping, or they were plugged up in ports because there was nobody to offload the goods. I mean, I remember seeing images of the port of Long Beach out in Los Angeles where like 60, 70, 80 ships kind of piled up because there's nobody to actually unload the stuff off the ships because everybody was in lockdown or everybody was sick. So we all remember these times. It was a time of massive disruption. Companies were forced to reevaluate their supply chains like that. They were forced to take a look at things like customer behaviors and shifting customer behaviors. All of a sudden, you had people buying things in retail stores who were no longer buying things in retail stores, who were buying everything online. Obviously, that was a shift that had been happening for a long, long time. But the severity of the disruptions during the global pandemic were very real. And what happened then was that some companies, I would argue a majority of companies, rightfully said, hey, we need to pivot, right? We need to change or readdress or reconfigure our supply chains. We need to change how we go to market. We need to change how we communicate our value prop. I mean, the list of changes that were forced on us because of the pandemic are extremely long. They were forced on our companies. And metaphorically speaking, what I saw happen from a data and analytics perspective is that our businesses said, hey, give me some insights on our supply chain. And data and analytics teams said, okay, well, here you go, but here's all the usual disclaimers, right? CEOs were asking, how much business are we doing with Acme Incorporated? right? How much business are we doing with Beta Incorporated? What does our lineage look like from a supply perspective? Can you trace the entire supply chain? Can you help me understand who my suppliers are? Because this is what was happening. We were second and third degree effects from things like, shipments not showing up. So it wasn't just necessarily your direct suppliers, it was your suppliers' suppliers. So our leaders were asking for insights, and many of us were unable to deliver those insights because of a lot of data and technical and systems debt that had been accumulating for a long time. Yes, I'm certainly talking about master data here, but I'm not talking about master data exclusively. But certainly, if you're trying to understand, okay, how much business are we doing with this corporate entity, or what are the core materials or ingredients of this product, right? Because I'm looking for alternatives to those countries or those suppliers or those ingredients or those materials. Yes, this does look a lot like master data. And a lot of companies who were not focused on this and who couldn't quickly and easily and confidently produce a single view of anything really struggled. And in response, a lot of those companies said, aha, we need to digitally transform. That was the kind of the buzzword used at the time. And a lot of those digital transformations involved MDM kind of as a foundational element. And I saw this firsthand. I was working at Gartner in 2020. I was an analyst at Gartner when the whole world went sideways. And I'm thinking to myself, oh man, I couldn't have picked it. I started with Gartner in 2019. I was like, I couldn't have picked a worse time to become an analyst for talking about MDM, because nobody's going to want to talk about MDM. All this stuff the world's going crazy. There's all these disruptions. Everything's going sideways. And MDM, for a long, long, long time, my beloved and dear MDM, had been the kind of the phase 2 thing, right? We'll get to it when we get to it. Well, we'll focus on something else now. We'll do this other thing. We'll get to MDM later. That kind of been like the story of MDM for so many companies, or they had tried and failed. So I'm an analyst, and I'm thinking, it's going to be a short run with Gartner. It's good while it lasted. I'll probably need to be finding a new job because nobody's going to be talking about MDM in the middle of a global pandemic. I was 180 degrees wrong. I was completely wrong. So Gartner analysts do these things called inquiries, where 4 or 5 times a day, every day, they have a one-on-one with CDOs or CIOs, VPs of data and analytics, other people who are driving data functions. And the inquiries are kind of a indicator. They're kind of a lagging indicator, arguably, a little bit of a lagging indicator on what's happening in an industry, right? Is the MDM industries, the data and analytics, is data management, data governance. And I was taking not just MDM inquiries, I was taking inquiries related to data governance, some data quality, some data strategy. And these inquiries are basically, they're a barometer of what's happening in the field, because it's very normal for a CIO or a CDO or anybody in a data leadership function to say, okay, I got to solve this problem. What are some best practices? What should I be thinking about? What technology should I be investing in? What should my organizational model look like? These are normal questions. And again, I thought nobody's going to be asking those questions because, MDM is going to be phase 2. It's deprioritized. Oh, hi, Mina. I didn't say hi. Hi, Mina. Good to see you as well. Another Detroit. With Detroit in the house today. So these are normal questions to ask, and I thought nobody's going to be asking them, and I was wrong. The phone, and I'm saying the phone, started ringing off the hook. Our inquiry volume related to MDM skyrocketed. So instead of people saying, "Wow, we'll fix the MDM thing later," right? We'll work on our supplier 360 later. What people rightfully figured out very quickly, and this is very unlike AI over the last couple of years, I would argue, but people figured out very quickly, data leaders figured out very quickly, to give my business what it needs to deal with these disruptions, I need MDM as a foundational component. This is why in 2020, it's actually, my years are running together, late 2021, I wrote this thing at Gartner called The State of MDM. that I have reproduced here with Profisee. Every year I've been doing it, kind of the state of the nation, as it were, the state of the MDM nation. And in 2021, I wrote a piece for Gartner called The State of MDM, where I said that MDM had transitioned from a nice to have to a must have, because my phone was ringing off the hook. CDOs wanted to talk to me, wanted to pick my brain about what they needed to do in order to solve for MDM during the middle of a global pandemic. Right now, you could say to yourself, "Okay, wait a minute, bad timing." MDM programs can be long, and operational MDM can be. Doesn't have to be, but it can be. I mean, you're talking often several months long initiative. But putting that aside and to say, okay, well, maybe a day late and a dollar short, separate issue altogether. People were saying we need to finally fix the MDM thing. We need to do this, and I was hearing that over and over and over. MDM is now a must-have, and frankly, in all honesty, without giving away too much inside baseball here, or inside of how the machine at Gartner works, that belief that MDM had transitioned to a must-have is part of the reason why Gartner stopped publishing an MDM Magic Quadrant in 2022, because we believed that MDM had kind of moved through the hype cycle and had come out of the trough of disillusionment and gone up to the plateau of productivity, where it reached the point where it's just table stakes. You got to do it. And when a technology or a discipline or any thing on the hype cycle reaches that point, Gartner stops covering it in Magic Quadrants, because it's you just got to do it. Everybody's got to do it. That's the perspective we were taking around MDM, in part because of all the stuff we were hearing during the pandemic. Now, I know for a fact, coming back to tariffs, I know for a fact a lot of companies didn't actually do that work. They didn't focus on what is needed to have a accurate, consistent, trustworthy, single view of their customers, their suppliers, their assets, their materials, their ingredients. I know many companies did not do that, because many of those digital transformation initiatives went sideways within a year of them trying to get launched and getting funded, because of changing business conditions on the ground, right? So if you're one of those companies where it still takes you 2 to 3 weeks of manually cobbling reports together around your suppliers or your assets or your ingredients or your core materials, if it takes you a few days because you have to manually stitch data together from multiple sources to come up with that single view, we need to solve this problem. I don't know what's happening with tariffs. Maybe they're gone tomorrow. It's a very chaotic time. Maybe they're all gone tomorrow. Maybe they're all 300% tomorrow. I don't know. And again, I'm not here to have a political discussion. But I do know that we live in a very different time. I do know that we are part of a broader shift. Again, I'm not here to talk about the politics of it, whether it's right or it's wrong, it doesn't matter. What we are seeing is this shift away from globalism and shift towards more of an idea of nationalism. And this is not a United States thing. Certainly not a United States thing. I just spent the last day in Canada. All of my family's in Canada. And as a result of all of this tariff shenanigans, Canadians are saying, hey, we need to maybe figure out how to fend for ourselves. We need to be less dependent. And okay, great. Way to go, Canada. That's part of this broader shift towards, I would just kind of largely say, nationalism. And again, I'm not going to say whether it's right, whether it's wrong. So there is a broader macro environment here that is screaming to data professionals, hey, you need to figure this stuff out. You need to figure it out. There are other, and what do I mean by it? I mean being able to confidently and accurately produce a report that says, here's how much business we are doing with Acme Incorporated as a supplier, as a customer. Here's a report that shows, here's a knowledge graph, here's a report built off a knowledge graph that shows some of the interconnectedness within our supply chain. Here's another report that shows all by country of origin, all of our core ingredients. whether you're a manufacturer or not. Maybe you were just a wholesaler or distributor. Maybe you're just somebody, maybe you're in the logistics business. I don't know. But having the insights to be able to say, this is where the stuff on our trucks is coming from. This is where the stuff on our shelves is coming from at a level you probably haven't done before, right? At an ingredient level, at a material level. Can you do that? Can you provide those insights? Can you provide the data to your customers so that they can ask the question, where else can we source this stuff from? Right? Where else can we go for a similar product or a similar ingredient or a similar material? These are the types of insights we need to be able to get to. And this is what I mean by it. You need to figure this out, figure it out. The beating heart of this, my dear friends, the beating heart of this is MDM. It really is. There's advanced analytics. I just mentioned knowledge graphs. We can have an interesting academic discussion whether that's part of MDM or not part of MDM. I think it's more advanced analytics. But you need to put all these things together to be able to paint a picture for your business that is inclusive and shows all of this. So macro force number one, global disruption, nationalism, leading to needs of our business to better understand everything about our products, our customers, our markets, our ingredients, even our employees. This is master data, my dear friends. That's force number one. There are other forces. One of them being, I will broadly say ESG. Now, ESG has kind of taken a back seat because of some of the other things happening, I think, from a political perspective. But, environmental, social, governance needs, that force created something in Europe called the digital product passport. If you're in Europe and you are in the business of making things or shipping things or retailing things, you already know what I'm talking about. I would hope that you already know what I'm talking about. But if you're in the United States or anywhere outside of Europe and you're not familiar with the digital product passport, Google it. I would invite you to Google it. Not now. After, at 12 o'clock Eastern or after you finish watching all of this. The digital product passport is an effort by the European Union to provide full transparency around supply chains of products, starting with certain products. So they are slowly rolling out the digital product passport. The whole idea, and they're starting with batteries, and I think it starts next year for batteries, where if you sell or retail batteries in the European Union, you need to be able to understand where their core components came from, and you need to be able to track the life cycle of that product all the way from the time that it was manufactured to the time that it's recycled. So part of the impetus here is to be able to kind of close the loop on having a whole 360-degree view of the life cycle of a product to understand that if it's a recyclable product, is it actually being recycled? So that's a part of it, but it's also providing transparency on the core ingredients of things. Where do they come from? Were they sourced ethically? Were they sourced from countries that maybe you don't want to do business in necessarily? The concept behind the digital product passport, maybe you could think of it this way. If you went into a Whole Foods in the United States and you wanted to know, okay, I'm about to buy something in the middle of the store, or maybe it's actually on the edge of the store. Maybe it's more produce, or produce, as we say in Canada. I did pick up my Canadian accent very briefly for a few hours yesterday. It was comforting. Is the clump of bananas you're about to buy, where'd they come from? Okay, there's a label on them, probably says Costa Rica, Guatemala, who knows? But who picked them? Were they picked by somebody who's being paid a living wage? Where were they actually grown? What field were they actually grown? Like, wouldn't it be cool to be able to see all that stuff, right? To see the full lineage of what you're buying, right? And to be able to ask them those questions. I think that's kind of where we're going. And I see that as being a broader force here, one of the macro forces. Europe is going to mandate these types of insights through the digital product passport. I suspect that will find its way to the US, to North America in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's through customer demand, I think it would be through consumer demand, because customers will want to ask for that, right? And we've kind of there's ideas of this already. There's our obviously labeling on things is the fair labeling. There's the organic labeling, and and we could have a separate discussion about the accuracy of that. Also a master data problem. But I see that as another force here that says, hey, data professionals, we need to be able to provide insights in our products, in our suppliers, right? In a way that we've never, and at a level of detail that we haven't had to do before. Once again, pointing back to MDM. So I would urge data professionals to consider, because of these things happening with tariffs, to consider some of the things that I'm talking about around MDM if you haven't figured this out yet, because you need to figure it out. I will be brutally honest, though, and say I've had a couple of posts on LinkedIn talking about the whole tariff issue, and I thought that they would be blockbusters. I thought that everybody would want to be talking about it, and I thought that people would be like, oh yeah, this is huge. My company's talking about this. And in conversations that I've been having through those LinkedIn posts and through the conferences that I go to, it doesn't appear to me that a lot of our companies are actually talking about this, at least within the data analytics function, which I find interesting. Are you noticing the same? Are you in a data function, and are your companies, if you're a manufacturer or retailer or distributor, are you talking about, okay, what are we going to do? And how do we deal with this? I have had a handful of conversations, and this one kind of blows my mind, where a lot of the people who I know are kind of caught flat-footed and don't have the infrastructure and don't have the systems and don't have the discipline of MDM, where they've told me, well, we're just kind of taking a wait and see. Yeesh. That's not an answer that I would want to give a CFO or a CEO. If somebody asked me, okay, right, can you run the report that shows me, the complexity of our relationship within our supply chain to Acme Incorporated? And, where does Acme source their goods from? And are those goods in high tariff countries? Can you run those reports confidently? I don't want to be the data professionals like, oh, I get it. I hear you, but we're taking a wait and see on that one. Pardon me. Yeah, so I've had some very strange conversations here where there's a lot of people are just kind of wait and see, and I'm not entirely sure that's the right approach. Because I'm coughing here, take a little break. Hello, Scott Taylor, if you're still there, my dear friend. This is where we come for inside baseball. There's no coughing in baseball. No coughing in inside baseball. Let's see if there's any new messages. There are not. So this is my reasonably long-winded way of saying we need to figure out MDM as a means to buttress our organizations against these disruptions, because I don't see them stopping. I really don't see them stopping. The disruption seems to be the new normal. There are broader forces at play here. Another one, I'll give you a third. So I talked about kind of the shift from globalization to nationalism. Nationalization would be buying infrastructure. Nationalism, protectionism. I talked about the shift towards ESG, digital product passports in Europe. Here's another one, global demographic changes. If you're not kind of aware of some of the things that are happening, particularly in what we call the Western world, we are in a bit of a demographic crisis in that all of the countries in Europe are, from a fertility perspective, are well below replacement rate. Meaning we as a society are not generating enough new people to replace the old people, which is causing our populations to significantly age, which is compromising our ability to maintain our gross domestic products, because that GDPs are a function of productivity. Productivity is a function of the number of people in the workforce. The number of people in the workforce is a function of you and me. And if there isn't enough of us, because our numbers are declining, because our populations are declining, because we've stopped having new versions of you and me, which is a trend across all developed nations. All, by the way, it's not just a European thing, it's all developed nations. There are significant impacts there from a GDP perspective. And this is a bit more of a slow drip, right? Drip, drip, drip. I mean, it's not something that is like, we're going to wake up tomorrow and say, holy cow, we've run out of people. But there are interesting kind of macro forces here again that suggest we may not be able to rely on some of our global trading partners for consistent output because they will be unable to sustain the output that they have had for the last few years for these reasons. You put a lot of this stuff together, there's a lot of changes happening. So that's another force. I could keep going, but we need to figure this out. MDM is foundational. It is a must-have. And the good news when it comes to at least these, I will call them single views or call them a 360 view. It's fine if you want. The good news here is that these do not require massive lifts. They really don't. Some of the cool stuff I was talking about, like second, third, fourth degree relationships, knowledge graphs, some of the advanced analytics, I think that are part and parcel to what I'm talking about. I think those are maybe a little trickier. But when it comes to creating a single view of something, it's not as hard as you may think. All you need to try to do is to create some common definitions that would be used in those analytics, to create some policies related to what is my customer data accurate, when is it not accurate, right? Some basic data quality policies, some basic governance policies, some decisions around how to match things together, right? But we're not talking about a massive lift here. And the good news, my friends, is that to create these single views, you don't necessarily need to change any of your business processes. Okay, you may have badly duplicated records in your procurement system or in your ERP or in your CRM. You may have multiple versions of Acme, and that's a problem, and we want to address that problem longer term. But these analytical styles of MDM, creating a single view of something, all you need to do in the short run to drive meaningful value to your organizations is to find a way to link all this stuff together accurately, consistently, and in a way that you can explain, by the way. This is key, in a way that you can explain. If you produce a report that says, here's much business we're doing with Acme, you better be able to stand behind it. There better be some level of explainability here. This is another one of the very, very good things about MDM, is because you can explain the rules. You need to define the rules. You need to configure the rules into MDM software. Not necessarily a hard requirement, but for most companies to run MDM at scale, you're going to be running software. And you can explain the rules because they're right there. You can explain them. You can explain how matching worked because you can say, we chose this field and used it. We put a weighting of 10% on name, 20% on address, 20% on phone number, whatever it is, you can fully explain it. This is another reason why, yes, I think AI will be very disruptive in our space. And I think it will help accelerate some of those decisions and augment some of those decisions and make recommendations about data quality policies, about matching strategies, about data models. Fantastic. But it will never fully automate a lot of those processes. Maybe it will for some use cases, but for many use cases where you need to be able to explain to an auditor or to your CFO or to a regulator why they're looking at what they're looking at. If you need to be able to explain it, I'm not entirely sure we can just turn all this stuff over to the AIs, right? I'm about as bullish as they come for AI. But if we can't explain it, by the way, I've been in that position. You don't want to be in that position. Meaning I've been the guy that has created a single view and couldn't explain why somebody was seeing what they were seeing. And you do not want to be in that position, because the minute somebody questions you, one of your customers questions you, why am I seeing what I'm seeing? That's a logical question to ask, by the by. It's a logical question to ask. Why am I seeing what I'm seeing? If you can't explain it, then boom, you will no longer have the trust of your customers. And the minute the trust goes out the window, you are in an uphill battle. And as great as AI is, and as great as some of the LLMs are, for many, many, many use cases, I don't think you're going to want to turn those decisions over to robots, because how do you explain? How do you say, whoa, you're seeing what you're seeing, Mrs. or Mr. Chief Marketing Officer, because that's what the LLM told us to do. Ugh. Yikes. And maybe for some use cases, it's okay. Maybe you're executing a snail mail campaign where the cost of being wrong is reasonably low, right? Where you send 2 pieces of mail to the same address. you had a false positive match or a false negative match, and you have a suboptimal result. You match something together that you shouldn't match together, and you're doing a snail mail campaign, and you throw whatever the cost of the stamp is out the window. Not great, but you're not going to get sued. You're not going to break the law. Cost of being wrong is reasonably low. Maybe for that use case where you're trying to execute billions of rows and match billions of rows quickly, like kind of like a CDP where you're doing it very deterministically, maybe it's okay to use an LLM to do some of that stuff and to do the matching and to automate some of the matching. Maybe for some of these use cases. But if you're putting together a financial report, if you're doing your annual report, if you are committing an entry to a general ledger and your CFO asks, what's going on here? Oh, sorry, that's what the LLM did. No. No, I don't want to be that CDO. Just saying. All right. Well, so that's my perspective. Data and tariffs. The broader discussion here is around disruption and how do we deal with disruption? The importance of MDM as a means to deal with that disruption is foundational, my friends. It's foundational. I live and breathe MDM. It's my thing. You got questions, reach out. I'm here to help. Take a quick check of what's going on. It is a quiet Friday afternoon. I suspect many are on vacation. Last week was Memorial Day here in the United States, with Monday being off. I suspect many people are off this week. They took the entire week off. If so, yay, good for you. I didn't. I worked when I was sick. And perhaps that is why I'm still sounding like somebody who has 3 packs of Marlboro Reds a day. Let's talk about Informatica. Fun stuff. All right. A few things. One, the acquisition of Informatica by Salesforce, I think, is a very good thing for our industry. So let me just throw that out there. It's a very good thing for the data and analytics industry, and it's a very good thing for software vendors. It's a good thing because it is a good signal. What do I mean by a good signal? It is a signal, I believe, that, let's just say data management, okay? Data management encompasses data governance. You hear me often use the phrases data governance and data management independently. Data management is the superset. Data governance is a subset within the superset, I would argue, right? Data management includes data governance. That's the way I look at it. It's not an either or, it's a within. Data governance exists within data management, but I do know that I use these phrases interchangeably. I use them all the time. And I think that it is a good sign, a positive sign. I think it is an acknowledgement by Salesforce and an acknowledgement by a major player in the business application space. And that's another phrase I'll be using for the remainder of our 22 minutes. I will be using the phrase business application. What do I mean by that? CRM, ERP, procurement, HR, HRIS systems, the software that is running our businesses, okay? Business applications. So I think that the acquisition here is a broader acknowledgement that we need a tighter integration between business applications and data management platforms. We'll just call them platforms. And that is a good thing. It's always been there. It's that need has always been there. It's one of the things that MDM does, right? It provides a link between the data management layer, where MDM lives, the data management platform, and into operational systems, because we push these gold master records into those systems. So I would argue this is a good sign for MDM writ large. Now, and it's a good sign for data integration. It's a good sign for data quality. It's a good sign for metadata management. So all the things that I just rifled off, these are the kind of the core enabling disciplines of kind of the broader idea of data management. So enabling capabilities of data management include integration, quality, MDM, governance, metadata management, as it were. So it's a good sign. It's a really, really good sign. And for many of us, it's like, hip hip hooray, hey, there's a broader acknowledgement here that we matter, that we're critical, And that if you are serious about enabling AI in those business applications, because that's where it's going to happen, right? What's going to happen is agents will be, this is agent force, agents will be deployed within your CRM system, within your ERP system that help you optimize business processes, right? That help you do better at procure to pay, that help you in doing better sales forecasting, that help you in creating better marketing campaigns and more tailored marketing campaigns. I could keep going on and on and on, but our businesses are run and managed in these platforms, and the agents are going to exist in these platforms. The agents, of course, are consuming what? Data. They're consuming data coming from the data management platform, right? That's where the data is going to be, quite obviously. So I am bullish about the idea of these worlds coming together. Now, when I thought about this, there's some hard realities here in that this is not new. You could argue that SAP, Oracle, and IBM have all been doing this for a long time. And that is kind of the strategy that they set upon themselves to deeply integrate these worlds. I'll give you an example. Oracle. Their data management is kind of intrinsic to their business applications. Right? This is why Oracle has an MDM solution, but it was never on the Magic Quadrant because it was so deeply integrated into the Oracle stack and only runs in the Oracle stack, where Oracle has created this walled garden of business applications and data management. Same thing with IBM, by the way. You can't go and buy IBM MDM. It's part of a broader suite of applications that is literally kind of hardwired into their business applications. So other companies have been doing this. So this is not a novel approach. It's not a novel strategy, but I think that is one that makes complete and total sense. Looking at some of the comments here. Comment from Scott Taylor. Benioff said the words master data on Mad Money last night, and before he could go on, Kramer interrupted him. Well, Kramer interrupts everybody. Everybody. But really, Benioff said master data? Oh, man, I gotta check that out. I mean, Kramer drives me nuts. But I would sit through 30 minutes of Kramer just to hear Mark Benioff say master data. So it's a good question, right? There's a lot of chatter about the overlap of MuleSoft and the integration platform of Informatica. And people are saying online, well, why would Salesforce buy Informatica when they already have MuleSoft? Well, let's remember that Informatica has, when it comes to data management, they have every arrow in the data management quiver. They've got a data quality tool. They've got a data governance tool. They've got an integration tool. Yes, they do. But it's not the only data management platform they have. They have MDM. They've got customer MDM. They've got product MDM. They even have reference data management solutions. So Informatica has all of the pieces of the puzzle when it comes to data management, all of them, all the core pieces. We could have an interesting conversation about the depth to which those pieces are integrated with each other. Because what I heard over and over is that even though Informatica sells the idea of this deeply integrated product stack, integrating across those products is never as easy as Informatica salespeople would lead you to believe. I heard that constantly when I was at Gartner. But they've got all the solutions. They've got all of them. So yes, they've got an integration stack, and that overlaps with MuleSoft. But okay, so what is that? 20% of the value of the deal is non-accretive, maybe. So I think people are overplaying the idea of MuleSoft and Informatica being, overlapping. That means that this is a dumb deal. No, I don't think so at all. So Informatica's got all these pieces of this puzzle, and all of a sudden, Salesforce goes from having a data management ecosystem that was very domain centric. Okay. Salesforce sales reps have been trying for years. Even when I was still running an IT function, I had 1,400 seats of Salesforce I managed. Every year at renewal time, the Salesforce reps would come along and say, hey, put all of your data in Salesforce because we can manage that data. Then they go and buy a CDP, right? Becomes the data cloud. Oh, okay, well, we can do MDM, right? Because we've got a CDP. We can do data quality because we'll have all these tools in the App Exchange. We've got all of the stuff that we can allow you to do data. And They've been trying to convince the market that they can do data management, and they can for one domain. Salesforce is not and has never been an enterprise class, enterprise-wide data management platform. They just aren't. Right? So people like me, other CDOs, other CIOs would look at the capabilities of Salesforce and say, okay, for marketing, yeah, awesome, great. Hey, you got a CDP? Fantastic, that's great. Hey, you got some data quality capabilities? Hey, that's great. You've got this data cloud? Hey, that's great too for marketing. I want to keep my marketers happy. So I'll allow them to do their thing in Salesforce. But when it comes to enterprise-wide use cases, enterprise-wide data management, data governance, data quality, data integration, I'm going to do stuff outside of Salesforce, which is the reality for like 95% of all companies. I know a handful that are trying to use Salesforce as an enterprise-wide MDM platform, that are trying to use Salesforce as an enterprise-wide data management platform. I've heard it, I've seen it, but it is the minority. Most certainly it is the minority. Because most people, rightfully, have been working with the Informaticas of the world and have been working with best of breed providers like a Profisee to solve some of these problems. So yes, Salesforce has data management capabilities, but they've always been bounded and built for, optimized for that one domain. And trust me, my friends, the requirements for marketing from a data management, data governance perspective are very different than the requirements for finance. And try to keep somebody who is a CFO happy by doing data management in Salesforce. Oh my gosh, it's not going to happen. You'll keep the CFO happy. You're not going to keep the CFO happy. Trust me on that one. Not going to happen. There's just not enough controls. This is what leads to this pervasive belief. And in many ways, having managed a Salesforce implementation, I can attest to this to be true. But the data in Salesforce is junk, right? Like if you just kind of go and ask anybody, and I think that's a little bit of a platitude, and we need to be careful about just labeling everything as junk, but because it's not all junk. Some of it may be perfectly fit for purpose, but there is this overwhelming belief within our world. Come on, let's just acknowledge it, that the data in a CRM. We don't have to pick on Salesforce. We can pick on any CRM, but I mean, Salesforce is the de facto. But the data in those systems is generally of low quality. It's because the DNA of Salesforce, Salesforce was born out of this rebellion from Siebel systems. Okay, I'm old enough to remember Siebel. Maybe some of you are old enough to remember Siebel system, with this giant monolithic mega solution that did everything, that did CRM, that did ERP, that cooked you breakfast every morning. It did everything, but it took forever to configure. If you wanted to change anything in I've managed this. Sorry, I'm having some PTSD here. Sorry, I triggered myself, right? Talking about Siebel. If you wanted to change anything in that beast of a platform, it was like weeks. Because it was SDLC. It's like gather the requirements, and then it drove people in sales nuts. That's why Salesforce was created, because people in sales and marketing were like, man, this Siebel thing driving me crazy. I can't even add a custom field or custom object. I can't move as fast as I need to move. It's slowing down my sales processes. It's slowing everything down. I need to be able to do my things my own way. Along comes Salesforce. Oh, by the way, I could charge it on my credit card. Right, because it's SaaS, right? That was new at the time, going in the Wayback Machine here. My point here is that the DNA of Salesforce is flexibility, configurability, and ease of use, and allowing salespeople to do whatever the heck they want to do. Great, it's working. This is the idea of a data mesh, is it not? Let the domains do whatever they want to do. So they did. They bought Salesforce, they created this thing, and then we complained about the quality of the data, but anyway. My point here is that there is this core DNA to Salesforce around the domain, built for the domain. What do I mean by domain? Sales and marketing. Yes, there's Service Cloud, and sometimes that traverses into other areas of the business. I get it, but for the most part, keeping that domain. So everything Salesforce does, everything they do is for that domain. So the key question of this acquisition, if you are an Informatica customer, this is the thing that I would want to ask and get clarity on. ASAP. ASAP. Will Informatica continue to be managed and marketed and sold and developed as an enterprise-wide data management platform that supports all use cases and all domains? Or is Salesforce going to pivot this thing and have it become, in essence, a bolt-on to the CRM, where Salesforce continues their focus on that one domain, where they basically use Informatica tools to supercharge their data management capabilities within the sales and marketing domain? This is, to me, this is the core question, and I don't have an answer to that yet. I think time will tell, but if Salesforce does focus on where they've always focused, which is the sales and marketing domain, and I'm an Informatica customer, I don't think that that's where I would want to be if I'm buying and using Informatica as an enterprise-wide play. So it will be really interesting to see where things go. Kurt asks at 11:38, do we see other acquisitions? Absolutely. This is the beginning of many. This is the beginning of many. Gartner gets a lot of things wrong, but they get a heck of a lot of things right. And one of the things that they get right in this regard is this idea of a convergence around what could loosely be called, in Gartner speak, a data and analytics governance platform and a data and analytics management platform. I don't see a meaningful difference between either of them. But they started talking about this when I was at Gartner. In 2021, they started talking about convergence in this world. They were telling that story through the lens of the data fabric, which I think is still a very valid lens. The CEO of a company called Atlan, her name is Prakalpa, had a great post on this on LinkedIn today, where she was talking about how the Salesforce acquisition is this acknowledgement of the importance of metadata. And it most certainly is, but it's not just metadata, right? It's not just the idea of metadata and how important metadata will be and how important semantics are going to be as food for the agents, right? It's important, but it's not the only thing. So I see a world where these application providers, okay, business application providers, whether that's Salesforce, whether that's ServiceNow, whether that's insert name here, Workday, Adobe's another one, where they're building applications in the marketing world, right? Marketing automation platforms, maps, where they say, okay, wait a minute, we're deploying all these agents, but we lack the context, we lack semantic insights, we lack master data insights, we lack consistent, accurate, trustworthy master IDs for our suppliers, our customers. We lack the ability to have robust data quality policies, both defined and enforced. We can't do that today. We're pretty good at doing Adobe things. We're pretty good at doing Workday things. But if we want to deploy agents within these environments, we need these other capabilities that we really don't have today. Those capabilities are most certainly data catalogs, data governance, metadata management platforms. So if I am an Atlan, an Alation, Calibra, all best of breed solutions, all independent companies, we don't have to go into detail around, what would make one a more attractive acquisition target than another in terms of like their level of current investment and where they are in their PE cycles and blah, blah. Separate podcast, maybe. But if I'm one of those three companies, I'm going to be pitching a tent in front of Adobe headquarters. I'm going to be pitching a tent in front of Workday headquarters, ServiceNow. They got a catalog, but there's other things that they could be doing. They could be doing data quality. They could be doing MDM, right? So that's true for business application providers, but it's also true for the cloud hyperscalers, right? If I am Amazon or Google or Microsoft's got a head start here on I would argue, a head start. If I'm one of the hyperscalers, I need to be able to enable this stuff too, right? Because I do see there's going to be some interesting, what's the right way to say this? The applications where people are logging in and using those things all day, every day, like the Salesforces of the world, they've got an advantage. from an agentic AI perspective, because the agents will live in those software platforms. They will be optimizing those business processes. Yes, optimizing data management, optimizing, automating data modeling, MDM, quality, compelling, and there's value there, but that's not the, sorry, cover your ears, data folks, that's not the transformational value. Yeah, if we can automate some data models, okay, great. That's great. But the transformational value will be on the business application side. It will be on doing better procure to pay, doing better quote to cash, faster, more efficient, doing better customer targeting, doing better marketing. I mean, I could keep going on and on, doing better procurement, doing the things that I was talking about earlier. Understanding where our core materials come from, their countries of origin, supply chain dependencies at an ingredient or material level. That's the level of insight that we need to get to, that the agents are going to need. Because you ask an agent a question, hey, agent, where's a better country of origin for this stuff? Where is there a better supplier for this stuff? And you don't have those insights. It's not there. It's not in the data, and it's not sitting out on the World Wide Web somewhere, because it isn't. Well, how do you answer that question? That's a very valid question. And it's one that I would want an agent to go solve as a part of like kind of a deep research type thing. But where's that data coming from? Right? So MDM, data catalogs, data quality, hyperscalers, business applications have most certainly an advantage here, but the cloud hyperscalers, Microsoft is both. They're both a provider of business applications and a provider of cloud and advanced analytics. If I'm a Snowflake or a Databricks, man, where do you go? Where do you go? You don't have the application layer. You're getting squeezed from the advanced analytics perspective. Yes, you're doing some of the cool data science stuff, but ultimately, from a persistence perspective, from a business model perspective, how much value is going to be in the future in storage and compute? How much value is going to be in storage and compute when the value is answering the question that I just asked? What's a better place to source these? That's the value, the transformational value, storage and compute. Who wants to be competing on storage and compute? I don't. I want to be competing on that other stuff. So I don't know where Snowflake and Databricks go in this world. I don't. Thought provoking interesting topics about human data management as a superset, data governance is a subset. What are the other subset items alongside data governance, and where does MDM set? Okay, I mentioned them a few times already. Data quality, data integration, MDM, metadata management / data governance. I mean, those are the core enabling capabilities of the data management superset, as it were. I think you could argue some advanced analytics as well. You could throw analytics in there, like analytics platforms, BI platforms. Like you could kind of throw them in there. I see them being less data management and more, sort of way to say it, data enablement, maybe. But yeah, I think hopefully I answered your question earlier, hopefully. So I'm excited to see where things go. It's going to be an interesting couple of years from an acquisitions perspective. There will continue to be consolidations. There will continue to be disruptions. There will continue to be things that we need to figure out. Meanwhile, foundations haven't changed. Foundations have not changed, and they're not going away. The idea that you could automate yourself an MDM solution, or automate yourself a metadata management solution, or automate yourself a data quality solution, you can heavily augment. You most certainly can. But in the short term, these enabling capabilities are critical, and they will continue to rely heavily on humans. You go to any conference, what you're going to hear is human in the loop, human in the loop, human in the loop. And ultimately, the human in the loop to me is about explainability. And I talked about that earlier. If you cannot explain the behavior of your system, if you can't explain it, you got a huge problem. You've got a trust problem. Once that happens, you are in an uphill battle in your relationships with your customers. So, my friends, it is 1 minute to the top of the hour. I wish everybody a happy and restful weekend. I certainly need it. If we're not connected, please connect with me. We do this the third Friday of every month. I think this is the fourth Friday because I had some travel last week. I don't know where I was. The days all melt together. But let's connect. Check us out third Friday every month. Check out the CDO Matters podcast. Every 2 weeks, we publish a new episode. Just published one about 24 hours ago with the CDO of Gavin Hupp, who is the CDO of United Theme Parks, SeaWorld, and the like. Great conversation with Gavin. Go check it out. Thanks for tuning in. Good to see everybody. Have a great weekend. We'll see you in another few weeks. Bye for now.